Well, this is just perfect. Absolutely spectacular. Commander Jax Voraan's sarcasm dripped like acid as he wrestled with the failing controls of the scout ship Nebula Seeker. The vessel shuddered violently, descending through the atmosphere of the supposedly uninhabited death world designated as Sol 3. Remind me again why I agreed to this suicide mission. Science Officer Lumi Terran, her 4 eyes rapidly scanning the fluctuating data streams, ignored his rhetorical question. Commander, our shields are failing at 43%. The electromagnetic field of this planet is interfering with our stabilizers. Her lilac skin paled to an alarming shade of white. And there's something else. Readings indicate a high concentration of no. That can't be right. Spit it out, Terran. Jax barked, his webbed fingers dancing across the emergency landing protocols. Sentient life forms, billions of them. Security Chief Drav Chorus, who had been silently checking his weapons, snapped his elongated head toward the science station. Impossible. This planet was confirmed uninhabited during the last Galactic survey, which was over 300 cycles ago, Lumi reminded him, her voice trembling slightly. Something has changed. Dramatically. The ship plunged through a thick layer of clouds, and the viewport cleared to reveal a sprawling landscape of green and brown below. Jax felt his second heart stutter in his chest. Sweet merciful void, he whispered. It's beautiful. Beautiful and deadly. Drav shouted, his paranoia kicking into high gear as he strapped himself into the emergency harness. Everything on this rock is probably trying to kill us. The atmosphere alone contains oxygen. Oxygen. Do you know what that does to organic matter? It's basically slow combustion. Lumi rolled her upper set of eyes. We've been over this, Drav. Our environmental suits will protect us from the toxic elements. If they survive the crash, Jax muttered, pulling hard on the manual override. Brace for impact. This is going to hurt. The Nebula Seeker screamed through the lower atmosphere, leaving a trail of burning debris and exotic particles. Warning alarms blared through the cabin, their urgent tones mixing with Drav's creative cursing in 7 different galactic dialects. Activating emergency landing protocols. Jax announced, his voice steady despite the chaos. Deploying crash fields and wait. What's that? Below them, a vast golden field stretched out, punctuated by strange rectangular structures. As they hurtled toward the surface, Jax caught sight of a small bipedal figure staring up at them, mouth agape. We've been spotted. Drav wailed. We're so dead. The High Council will disintegrate our genetic lineage for this violation. Shut up and hold on. Jax commanded, concentrating on the rapidly approaching ground. Impact in 3, 2, 1. The Nebula Seeker hit the Earth with the force of a small nova, carving a half-mile trench through what appeared to be some kind of agricultural field. When the ship finally skidded to a halt, an eerie silence fell over the cabin. Jax pried his fingers from the controls and ran a quick self-diagnostic. Status report. Everyone still in one piece? Lumi groaned, adjusting her cracked data visor. Mostly. Ship systems are catastrophically damaged. Life support at minimal levels. Communications array non-existent. So we're stranded on a death world filled with unknown sentient beings? Drav summarized, his voice unnaturally calm. Then he burst into hysterical laughter. Fantastic. Just fantastic. This mission couldn't possibly get any worse. From outside the ship came a strange rhythmic pounding. Someone or something was trying to get in. Drav's laughter died instantly. I stand corrected. Protocol dictates immediate defensive measures, Drav insisted, powering up his particle disruptor with trembling hands. We shoot first. Analyze the smoking remains later. Jax shook his head. And alert every other being on this planet to our presence? Brilliant strategy, Chief. The pounding continued, more insistent now, accompanied by a muffled voice. Hello? Anybody alive in there? Need help? Lumi's translator implant buzzed painfully in her ear canal. "Commander, I'm receiving coherent linguistic patterns. In primitive, but definitely a developed language. Can you translate?" "Already did," Lumi said, surprise evident in her voice. "That's what's strange. They're speaking what sounds like a badly pronounced version of standard galactic trade." Jax's antenna twitched in disbelief. Impossible. Unless they've had previous contact, Drav finished grimly, raising his weapon. The emergency hatch, damaged in the crash, groaned and then fell inward with a deafening clang. Drav yelped, accidentally discharging his disruptor into the ceiling. A shower of sparks rained down as two figures appeared in the opening. The taller one, a weathered-looking biped with facial hair and a red head covering, whistled low. "Well, I'll be damned. Actual aliens. Maya, get behind me." The smaller one, presumably Maya, ignored this command entirely, stepping forward with wide eyes. "Are you guys okay? That was some crash. We saw you coming down from the back 40. Drav, who had pressed himself against the far wall, shook visibly. "It speaks. The Death World creature communicates." Hank Donnelly tilted his head. "Death World? Buddy, this is Montana. Worst we got is winter and the occasional grizzly." Jax took a cautious step forward. "You understand us?" "Clear as day," Hank replied, then frowned. "Though you sound like you've got some kind of weird accent. Swedish, maybe?" "Our translator implants are functioning," Lumi whispered excitedly to Jax. "But how do they already have linguistic patterns so similar to ours?" Maya pointed to Lumi's 4 eyes. "That is so cool. Can you see in different directions at once?" Lumi blinked all 4 eyes in succession, startled by the direct question. Yes, actually." "Neat. Oh, I'm Maya, by the way. This is my dad, Hank. We grow wheat. Well, we did before your spaceship plowed through half our field." She grinned, showing alarmingly sharp teeth. "Not every day we get visitors from space, though, so I guess we'll call it even." Drav made a strangled sound. "They're so casual about our arrival. These must be the warrior class of their species." Hank coughed into his hand. "I'm just a farmer, son. Though I did serve 2 tours with the army back in the day." "Military training," Drav hissed. "I knew it." Jax silenced his security chief with a glare before addressing the humans. "I am Commander Jax Voraan of the Galactic Survey Corps. We experienced some technical difficulties." "No kidding," Hank said dryly, glancing at the smoking console behind them. "Look, it's going to be dark soon, and I reckon you folks might need some help. Our place is just up the hill. Got food, water, and nobody's likely to bother you there while you sort out whatever this is." Maya nodded enthusiastically. "Plus the government guys will totally be swarming this place by morning." "Government guys?" Lumi asked, her voice faltering. "Oh yeah. Black SUVs, sunglasses, the whole deal. They always show up in the movies when aliens crash." Jax exchanged nervous glances with his crew. Their mission brief had been explicit: avoid contact with the dominant species at all costs. "We should go with them," Lumi suggested quietly. "Our environmental suits are compromised, and my readings indicate the night cycle will bring a significant temperature drop." "Walk right into their dwelling? Are you insane?" Drav clutched his disruptor tighter. "This planet is classified as a Class 9 hazardous environment. Everything here evolved to kill everything else." Hank chuckled. "Your friend's a little high-strung, ain't he?" To everyone's surprise, Jax laughed a sound his crew hadn't heard in cycles. "You have no idea." Maya stepped further into the ship, seemingly unconcerned about the sparking technology or the alien beings. She casually picked up a piece of hot debris with her bare hand, examined it, then tossed it aside. All 3 aliens froze in shock. Did she just touch superheated alloy? Lumi whispered. Jax nodded slowly. Perhaps the database entry on this planet wasn't exaggerated after all. The Donnelly farmhouse, a modest two-story structure surrounded by fields and outbuildings, became the aliens' temporary sanctuary. Getting there, however, had been nothing short of torturous. By the 7 moons of Traxxas Prime, Jax wheezed, collapsing onto the kitchen chair that groaned ominously under his weight. The gravity on this planet is barbaric. Hank set a glass of water in front of each alien visitor. It's just Earth normal, about 9.8 meters per second squared, if I remember my high school physics right. Just Earth normal, he says, Drav muttered, his exoskeletal support braces whining with each movement. What's normal for you is crushing us. I've lost at least 2 centimeters in height since we landed. Maya giggled as she watched Lumi struggle to lift the glass of water with her spindly arms. Here, let me help. No, I can do it, Lumi insisted, determination flashing in all 4 eyes. With visible effort, she raised the glass and took a sip. Her facial membranes immediately flushed bright orange. This water, it's so heavy. And it contains microorganisms, Drav exclaimed, analyzing the liquid with his portable scanner. Billions of them. You're drinking an entire ecosystem. Hank scratched his beard. It's well water, perfectly clean. Clean? Drav's voice rose an octave. There are more life forms in this glass than on some entire planets. Outside, thunder cracked across the sky as an evening storm rolled in. All 3 aliens jumped simultaneously. Atmospheric discharge, Lumi noted, her voice trembling slightly. Fascinating and terrifying. It's just a thunderstorm, Maya said casually, closing the kitchen window. Happens all the time. You mean your planet randomly attacks you with electrical bolts from the sky all the time? Jax asked incredulously. And you just accept this? Hank shrugged. Can't control the weather. A flash of lightning illuminated the kitchen, followed by a thunderous boom that sent Drav diving under the table. We're all going to die here, he moaned. Nonsense, Jax replied, though he'd flinched hard enough to spill his water. We simply need to repair the communicator and call for extraction. How difficult could it be to adapt some local technology? 3 days later, Jax's question had been thoroughly answered. Very difficult, indeed. The aliens had established a makeshift repair station in Hank's barn, keeping watch for the government agents Maya had warned about. So far, none had appeared, but Drav remained convinced they were being monitored by stealth drones that turned out to be hummingbirds. These power converters are prehistoric, Jax complained, examining the farm's electrical system. How does anything function on this planet? Hank, who was helping connect wires, laughed. We make do with what we have. Been that way since the beginning of time. Lumi looked up from where she was attempting to interface the ship's damaged communicator with an old ham radio Hank had found in the attic. That's what's remarkable about humans, Commander. They haven't waited for ideal conditions or advanced technology. They just adapt. Or die trying, Drav added grimly from his lookout position. Despite Drav's pessimism, the aliens found themselves developing a grudging respect for human technology. It was crude, yes, but surprisingly effective and infinitely hackable. This duct tape substance, Lumi noted with wonder, is primitive yet possesses molecular bonding properties comparable to our advanced adhesives. A and WD-40. Jax added with unexpected enthusiasm. A lubricant with 40 verified applications. The efficiency is commendable. Perhaps the most challenging aspect of their stranding, however, was the attempt to blend in during necessary trips into town for supplies. Using the ship's damaged database on Earth culture last updated over a century earlier led to some unfortunate fashion choices. You can't go into Thompson Falls wearing that, Maya insisted, staring in horror at Jax's outfit, a zoot suit complete with pocket watch and spats. According to our cultural database, this is appropriate formal attire for interacting with human merchants, Jax protested. Maybe in 1920, Hank muttered, tossing him a flannel shirt and jeans. Try these instead. And Drav, lose the monocle. But it's a distinguished accessory for gentlemen of status. Drav complained, reluctantly removing the eyepiece. Their disguise is a combination of clothing, hats pulled low, and Lumi's remarkably effective makeup skills generally worked, though not without incidents. At the hardware store, Drav had loudly greeted the cashier with "Take me to your leader," causing Maya to nearly choke on her soda. In the grocery store, Lumi had been fascinated by the refrigerated section. You purposely keep food cold to prevent decomposition instead of using molecular stabilizers. Ingenious primitive solution. The bathroom at the gas station had proven particularly challenging. Why would a species deliberately install porcelain traps that simulate drowning? Drav had demanded after an unfortunate incident with the automatic flush mechanism. Despite these setbacks, the repair work progressed. As they worked side by side with Hank, using his tools and adapting his technology, a quiet realization began to dawn on all three aliens. Humans might be primitives, but they were dangerous primitives, resourceful, resilient, and remarkably unfazed by the countless ways their planet tried to kill them every day. "Commander," Lumi whispered one evening as they watched Hank casually repair a tractor engine twice his size. "I'm beginning to understand why the Galactic Council quarantined this planet." "I found something," Lumi announced, her voice uncharacteristically somber. It was late evening, and the aliens had gathered in the barn while their human hosts slept. The repaired data terminal from the ship glowed softly in the darkness, casting eerie shadows across their faces. Jax looked up from the communications array he'd been tinkering with. The real reason our navigation systems failed? No, Lumi's upper pair of eyes blinked rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation among her species. The real reason we were sent here. She turned the screen toward her companions. On it, a classified file had been unlocked, its encryption broken by the makeshift repair job they'd performed. The header read, "Operation Sentinel, Assessment of Sol 3 Containment Integrity." Drav nearly knocked over a toolbox in his haste to see the screen. Containment? I knew it. This wasn't just a routine survey mission. "It gets worse," Lumi said quietly. "Much worse." Jax scanned the document, his antenna stiffening with each paragraph. "This can't be accurate. It says humans are classified as the most dangerous sentient species ever encountered," Lumi finished for him. "Rated Omega-level threat to galactic stability." Drav slumped against the barn wall. "We're so dead. So incredibly, unbelievably dead." "There's a briefing video attached to the file," Lumi continued, tapping the screen. A holographic projection flickered to life, showing Admiral Zorn of the Galactic Survey Fleet, their direct superior. His tentacled face appeared grave as he addressed an unseen audience. "The mission to Sol 3, designated Earth by its indigenous population, is our most critical containment verification in 3 cycles," the Admiral began. "As most of you are aware, this system was placed under complete quarantine after initial contact 2,000 years ago, resulted in the loss of an entire expeditionary fleet." The hologram shifted to show historical footage. A massive armada of ships approaching a blue-green planet, followed by explosive flashes and then nothing. "We underestimated them," Admiral Zorn continued. What appeared to be a primitive, pre-industrial civilization demonstrated unprecedented adaptability and aggression when threatened. Their technology advanced exponentially during the brief conflict, weapons systems evolving between encounters. Jax's jaw dropped. "That's impossible. No species can advance that quickly." "Humans can," Lumi whispered. The briefing continued with clinical detachment. Subsequent observation revealed several alarming traits unique to humans. First, they evolved on a Class 9 death world, making them naturally resistant to environmental extremes that would kill most sentient species. Second, they possess a unique form of problem-solving we've termed creative adaptation under pressure, the ability to improvise effective solutions with limited resources when stressed. Like fixing a spaceship with duct tape and a ham radio, Jax muttered. Third, Admiral Zorn's hologram continued, and most concerning, they exhibit a collective behavior we've classified as aggressive expansion. When meeting any boundary or limitation, humans instinctively seek to overcome it. The hologram shifted to show a timeline of human development. The progression from stone tools to nuclear weapons occurred in a time span that made all three aliens uncomfortable. The quarantine protocol established 2 millennia ago has one purpose: containment. Humans must not be allowed to leave their solar system and make contact with the wider galaxy. The consequences would be unpredictable. Admiral Zorn's expression grew even more serious. Your mission is to verify that quarantine measures remain effective and undetected. The automated satellites and stealth platforms surrounding Sol 3 should have prevented any outbound exploration beyond their moon. Report any anomalies immediately. The hologram flickered and died, leaving the barn in near darkness. So we're not really scouts, Jax said after a long silence. We're prison guards checking if the inmates are still locked up. Drav paced nervously between farm equipment. This is so much worse than I imagined. Did you hear what he said? An entire fleet. These humans destroyed an entire fleet. 2,000 years ago, Lumi reminded him, before they had advanced technology. And what about now? Drav pointed toward a stack of magazines Maya had loaned them, scientific journals about astronomy and space exploration. Have you seen these? They've already sent primitive probes beyond their solar system. Voyager, Pioneer, New Horizons. They have rovers on their neighboring planets. They've built a space station. Jax frowned, picking up one of the magazines. The cover showed a massive rocket launching toward the stars. The quarantine was supposed to prevent this level of advancement. Lumi nodded grimly. It failed. And there's something else. She tapped a few commands into the terminal, bringing up a signal analysis. I've been scanning local broadcasts. They're discussing plans for colonies on their moon and neighboring planet, something called the Mars Initiative. They're planning to break quarantine, Jax realized, his heart sinking. It's only a matter of time. A floorboard creaked behind them. All three aliens whirled around to find Maya standing in the barn doorway, a tray of sandwiches in her hands, her expression unreadable. So that's why you're really here, she said quietly. We're your prisoners. The sandwich tray clattered to the floor as the teenage girl turned and ran toward the house. Wait, Jax called after her. It's not what you think. But the damage was done. Their secret was out, and with it, any chance of a peaceful resolution seemed to vanish like stardust in a solar flare. Drav retrieved his particle disruptor from its hiding place. What do we do now, Commander? For once, Jax had no answer. 50 miles away, in a nondescript government facility disguised as a weather research station, a klaxon blared to life. Technicians scrambled between monitoring stations as a red dot pulsed on the main display screen. We've got a signal, announced a young analyst, fingers flying across his keyboard. Extraterrestrial communications burst, originating from Thompson Falls area. Frequency matches nothing in our database. Agent Eleanor Ellie Blackwood strode into the room, her crisp black suit and no-nonsense demeanor parting the chaos like a shark through water. At 38, she'd spent 15 years with the agency, climbing the ranks through a combination of brilliant analysis and ruthless efficiency. Show me, she commanded, stopping before the main screen. It was brief, Ma'am, the analyst explained, but distinctive. Definitely not human technology. Consistent with the energy signature from the atmospheric entry event 3 days ago. Ellie's eyes narrowed. The one we classified as a meteorite? Yes, Mom. Except meteorites don't typically transmit data. They're calling home, Ellie murmured, more to herself than anyone else. She straightened, decision made. I want 3 tactical teams ready in 5 minutes. Full containment protocol. And get me satellite coverage of the entire area, now. As the room erupted into activity, Ellie stepped aside to make a secure call. Director? Blackwood here. We found them. Moving to intercept. She paused, listening. Yes, sir. Complete isolation. No witnesses. You have to leave. Now. Maya burst into the barn at dawn, startling the aliens who had been debating their next move all night. Jax rose to his feet. Maya, about what you heard. No time. She cut him off, tossing 3 backpacks onto the floor. Dad spotted drones over the north field. The government knows you're here. Draev let out a high-pitched keening sound. The end comes, just as prophesied in the briefing. Hank appeared in the doorway, looking grim. My buddy at the sheriff's office just called. Strange vehicles heading this way. Black SUVs, government plates. ETA 20 minutes. Why are you helping us? Lumi asked softly. After what you heard. Maya and Hank exchanged glances. Look, Hank said gruffly, I don't much care what some alien government thinks about us. Been around long enough to know that fear makes folks do stupid things, human or otherwise. And you're our friends, Maya added simply. Friends help each other. Something twisted in Jax's chest, an emotion his species rarely experienced. He recognized it from the ancient texts, gratitude mixed with shame. We've packed supplies, Hank continued, all business. There's an old logging road behind the property that connects to the national forest. You can avoid the main highways. Where exactly are we going? Jax asked, hastily gathering their equipment. My uncle has a cabin near Glacier National Park, remote, off the grid. You can lie low there while you finish your repairs. 15 minutes later, they were bouncing along a rutted dirt path in Hank's ancient pickup truck. Rav, wedged between Lumi and Jax in the back seat, clutched his particle disruptor with white-knuckled intensity. I still think we should surrender, he muttered. Explain our mission is peaceful. Maya, riding shotgun next to her father, twisted around. Bad idea. These aren't regular government agents. These are the kind that make people disappear. How can you be sure? Lumi asked. Because I watch movies, Maya replied with teenage certainty. Then, more seriously, and because Dad used to work with them, before he quit. All 3 aliens turned to stare at Hank, who kept his eyes firmly on the treacherous road. That was a lifetime ago, he said quietly. Let's just say I know what they're capable of. The truck burst through a thicket of trees onto a wider gravel road just as a helicopter thundered overhead. Down, Hank shouted, but it was too late. The thermal imaging had already spotted them. What followed was a high-speed chase that would have been comical if it hadn't been so terrifying. Hank's truck fishtailed around mountain curves, plowed through streams, and at one point even drove straight through a shallow lake while the helicopter tracked them from above. This is insane. Draev shrieked as they bounced over a fallen log. We're going to die on this primitive death trap. Stop being so dramatic, Hank shot back, yanking the wheel to avoid a boulder. This old girl's gotten me out of worse scrapes. When 3 black SUVs appeared on a parallel road, closing fast to cut them off, Hank made a hard left into what appeared to be impenetrable forest. There's no road here, Jax pointed out unnecessarily. Don't need one, Hank replied with grim satisfaction, shifting into a lower gear as they crashed through the underbrush. Behind them, the SUVs slowed, unwilling to risk their vehicles on the treacherous terrain. The helicopter, however, continued its relentless pursuit. They're calling in reinforcements, Maya announced, watching a small tablet device. Dad, we can't outrun them forever. Don't need forever, kiddo. Just need to get to the ridge. As they crested a steep hill, a vast panorama of mountains and valleys spread before them. Hank pointed to a distant speck nestled between two peaks. There, Uncle Pete's cabin. 2 miles as the crow flies, but about 20 by road. They'll expect us to take the long way around. Jax understood immediately. So we don't. Hank grinned, a wild glint in his eye. Exactly. He gunned the engine toward what appeared to be a sheer drop-off, as behind them, Agent Ellie Blackwood stepped out of the helicopter that had just landed on the road, her expression cold and determined as she watched the truck disappear over the ridge. Uncle Pete's cabin turned out to be a surprisingly comfortable 2-story structure built of massive logs, nestled against the side of a mountain with a breathtaking view of the valley below. More importantly, it was miles from the nearest neighbor, had its own generator, and was stocked with enough supplies to last for weeks. It had been 3 days since their narrow escape. The government search had shifted south, thanks to Hank's clever use of an old prospector's trail that didn't appear on any modern maps. Now, with a moment to breathe, the aliens found themselves in an unexpected situation, genuine downtime with their human hosts. So let me get this straight, Jax said, watching Hank scratch the ears of a large, furry quadruped that had greeted them enthusiastically upon arrival. This creature serves no practical purpose. It doesn't help with hunting, farming, or security. Well, Rusty here keeps the mice away, Hank replied, as the dog flopped onto its back, tongue lolling happily. But mostly he's just a pet. A pet, Lumi repeated, testing the unfamiliar concept. A companion animal kept solely for emotional satisfaction. Pretty much, Maya confirmed, joining Rusty on the floor for what she called a cuddle session. Drav observed from a safe distance. And you feed it, clean up its waste, and provide medical care in exchange for nothing. In exchange for love, man, Maya said, giggling as Rusty licked her face. Unconditional love. The security chief shook his head in bewilderment. Maintaining a non-productive organism for emotional gratification. How inefficient. Says the guy who collects shiny rocks, Jax muttered. Those are mineral specimens, Drav protested. They have scientific value. Later that evening, gathered around the fireplace, the conversation turned more serious. Lumi had been working on a more sophisticated translation algorithm, allowing for deeper communication beyond the basic vocabulary their implants had initially processed. I believe I've identified the source of many of our misunderstandings, she announced. Our cultural database contains significant distortions regarding human behavior. You mean lies, Maya said bluntly, roasting a marshmallow over the fire, a human food ritual that fascinated all 3 aliens. Not necessarily deliberate falsehoods, Lumi clarified, but observations filtered through fear and misinterpretation. Jax leaned forward. Explain. Take the concept of human aggression, Lumi began. Our database characterizes it as an inherent bloodlust, a desire to dominate and destroy. But that's not accurate, is it? Hank poked at the fire thoughtfully. Humans can be violent, sure. We've got a long history of wars and cruelty. Won't deny that. But that's not the whole story, Maya interjected. We also build things, create art, save endangered species, sacrifice for strangers. Precisely, Lumi said. The database failed to contextualize human aggression within your broader behavioral spectrum. You don't seek conflict for its own sake, you respond to threats with proportional force while maintaining complex social bonds. In other words, Jax summarized, you're not mindless killers. Well, I wouldn't go picking fights at certain bars in Thompson Falls, Hank chuckled, but generally speaking, no. Rav, who had been suspiciously examining a television remote control, looked up. But what about this entertainment of yours? These action movies where you simulate violence for pleasure. Maya rolled her eyes. It's called catharsis, dude. Fiction helps us process stuff safely. Speaking of entertainment, Hank said, flipping on the ancient TV that graced one wall of the cabin, there's a hockey game on tonight. What followed was perhaps the most surreal cultural exchange in galactic history, as three highly advanced aliens tried to comprehend the concept of sports. So these warriors battle for possession of a small disc on a frozen surface? Drev asked, utterly perplexed. And millions watch this territorial conflict remotely? Lumi added, while consuming fermented grain beverages and shouting advice that cannot possibly be heard by the combatants. Jax finished. Hank raised his beer in salute. Welcome to Earth, folks. By the time the hockey game ended, something had shifted in the cabin's atmosphere. The rigid formality that had characterized their earlier interactions had melted away, replaced by something that felt surprisingly like friendship. You know, Jax said quietly, after Maya and Hank had gone to bed, I'm starting to think the Council's assessment of humans might be fundamentally flawed. Lumi nodded. Their capacity for violence is matched only by their capacity for compassion. They're still terrifying, Drev insisted, though with less conviction than before. Did you see how Maya handled that spider earlier? Picked it up with her bare hands. After naming it Herbert and carefully relocating it outside, Lumi reminded him. Jax stared into the dying embers of the fire. We need to reconsider our mission parameters. The quarantine recommendation was based on incomplete data, perhaps even deliberate misinformation. Are you suggesting we defy the Council? Drev asked, aghast. Jax's antenna twitched thoughtfully. I'm suggesting we fulfill our true mission, accurate reconnaissance, whatever that reveals. The sound of helicopter rotors shattered the dawn silence. They found us, Maya announced, bursting into the main room where the aliens had been working through the night on their repaired communications array. 2 choppers coming in from the east, and vehicles on the access road. Hank appeared from the bedroom, buckling on a worn leather holster. We've got maybe 10 minutes. Gather what you need. Jax exchanged glances with his crew. We can't keep running. And we can't leave you behind, Lumi added, turning to their human allies. You've committed a serious crime by harboring us. By your own laws, that's treason, probably, Hank finished with a grim smile. Wouldn't be the first time. There's a root cellar, Maya suggested, hidden entrance under the rug. You could. No, Jax said firmly. No more hiding. No more running. He straightened to his full height, wincing slightly under Earth's gravity. I am a commander of the Galactic Survey Corps. It's time I acted like one. Drev clutched his disruptor nervously. What exactly are you proposing? Diplomacy, Jax replied, with a dash of truth. Outside, the whine of engines grew louder as 3 black SUVs pulled into the clearing around the cabin. A tall, imposing woman in a dark suit stepped out of the lead vehicle, flanked by 6 agents in tactical gear. That's her, Maya whispered from the window. The one in charge. Jax studied the human female with interest. She moves like a predator. Agent Blackwood, Hank muttered. Eleanor Blackwood. She was just a rookie when I left the agency. You know her? Lumi asked. I helped train her, Hank admitted. She was brilliant, ruthless, dedicated, and had absolutely no sense of humor. Sounds like my academy instructor, Jax remarked. A voice boomed through a loudspeaker. This is Agent Blackwood of the Extraterrestrial Defense Agency. We have you surrounded. Send out the non-terrestrial entities and you will be treated with leniency. Drev snorted. Leniency. Right. More like dissection and interrogation. Let me go first, Jax decided. Alone. That's suicide, Drev protested. Maybe, Jax acknowledged. But this ends now, one way or another. Before anyone could stop him, Jax stepped onto the cabin's front porch, hands raised in the universal gesture of surrender. The tactical team immediately raised their weapons, laser sights dancing across his chest. "I am Commander Jax Voraan of the Galactic Survey Corps," he called out, his translator implant projecting his voice. "I request formal diplomatic dialogue under Section 7 of the Sentient Species Contact Protocol." Agent Blackwood stepped forward, her face an unreadable mask. "Interesting. You speak as if we have established protocols for this situation." "Don't you?" Jax countered. "Given that you run an agency specifically tasked with extraterrestrial defense?" A flicker of surprise crossed Blackwood's face before disappearing. "You've been on Earth for nearly a week. How much have you reported back to your superiors?" "Nothing," Jax admitted. "Our communications were damaged in the crash." "Convenient," Blackwood replied. She nodded to her team, who began to advance. "You'll be coming with us for debriefing." "Wait." The new voice came from behind Jax. Lumi stepped out onto the porch, followed by Drav, who looked like he might faint at any moment. "There's something you should know," Lumi continued, "about why we're here." Blackwood raised a hand, halting her team's advance. "I'm listening." "We were sent to verify the integrity of the quarantine surrounding your planet," Lumi explained. "A quarantine established 2,000 years ago to contain what our council considers the most dangerous species in the galaxy." A murmur ran through the assembled agents. "You expect me to believe that advanced civilizations fear us?" Blackwood asked skeptically. "With good reason," Jax picked up the thread. "Humans evolved on what we classify as a death world. You're physically resilient, psychologically adaptable, and terrifyingly resourceful. When threatened, you advance technologically at rates that defy logical progression." Blackwood's eyes narrowed. "And yet here you stand, openly confronting us despite this supposed danger." "Because we've learned something important," Jax replied. "The assessment was wrong." At that moment, Hank and Maya emerged from the cabin. Several agents shifted their weapons toward the new targets, but Blackwood waved them off. "Agent Donnelly," she said coldly. "I should have known you'd be involved in this mess." "It's just Hank now, Ellie," he replied. "Has been for 15 years. You know what happens to agents who go rogue?" "I do." Hank positioned himself protectively in front of Maya. "Question is, do you know what happens when governments make decisions based on fear rather than facts?" Before Blackwood could respond, the sky above them lit up with a blinding flash. All eyes turned upward as a massive shape descended through the clouds, a sleek, silver craft at least 10 times the size of the Nebula Seeker. "Reinforcements?" Drav whispered hopefully. Jax shook his head. "That's not one of ours." The craft hovered silently above the clearing, its hull shimmering with energy patterns none of the aliens recognized. A beam of light shot down, and within it appeared a holographic figure, a tall, gray-skinned being with large, almond-shaped eyes. "Holy shit," Maya breathed. "It's a classic gray." Blackwood's team shifted nervously, weapons now trained on the new arrival. "Stand down," Blackwood ordered sharply, then stepped forward. Identity confirmed, Overseer. Situation contained as instructed. The holographic figure nodded. "Well done, Agent Blackwood. These interlopers have breached Containment Protocol 7 Alpha. They must be eliminated before they can report back." Jax, Lumi, and Drav exchanged confused glances. "You know each other?" Jax asked, antenna twitching in alarm. "Of course they do," Hank said grimly. "That's what I tried to tell you before we left. The EDA isn't defending Earth from aliens. They're working with them," Maya finished, understanding dawning on her face. Agent Blackwood's expression remained neutral. "The Oversight Collective has been our silent partner for 6 decades. They helped us develop technology, advance medicine, prevent wars. All they asked in return was our cooperation in maintaining the quarantine, protecting the rest of the galaxy from humanity's potential. The holographic alien, the Overseer, turned its large eyes toward Jax. Your presence here violates the treaty. The Council will be most displeased. What Council? Jax demanded. The Galactic Survey Corps answers to the United Planetary Alliance. We have no treaty with any oversight collective. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Blackwood's face. Overseer? The holographic alien's form shimmered slightly, for minor confusion. They come from a different jurisdiction. Different jurisdiction. My foot, Hank muttered. Ellie, remember your training. When the facts don't add up. Question the premise, Blackwood finished automatically. She turned to the Overseer. Explain this discrepancy. In now. And... Instead of answering, the Overseer's hologram flickered again. Eliminate the interlopers, Agent Blackwood. That is an order. In the tense silence that followed, Jax made a decision. He lowered his hands and stepped forward. Agent Blackwood, he said quietly. I think we've all been played. I need proof, Agent Blackwood said, her weapon still trained on the holographic Overseer. Not accusations. Jax nodded to Lumi, who pulled out their repaired data terminal. We've recovered corrupted files from our ship's database, files that were deliberately hidden from us. The hologram of the Overseer flickered more violently. This is treason. Agent Blackwood, remember your oath. My oath was to protect humanity, Blackwood replied coldly. Show me the files. Lumi activated the terminal, projecting a series of documents into the air between them. These records date back nearly 3,000 years, to the first contact between the United Planetary Alliance and Earth. The initial survey team reported finding a remarkable species, Jax explained, gesturing to the ancient text. Physically adaptable, psychologically resilient, and possessing creative problem-solving abilities unseen in any other known sentient race. Drav, finding his courage, stepped forward. But then something strange happened. The survey team's final report was altered. References to humanity's potential were replaced with warnings about aggression and danger. By whom? Blackwood demanded. By this group, Lumi said, pulling up another document. The Oversight Collective. A splinter faction within our own government that believes advanced technology should be controlled by a select few. The holographic Overseer's image destabilized further. Lies. Do not listen to these infiltrators. The truth, Jax continued relentlessly, is that Earth wasn't quarantined because humans are dangerous. It was quarantined because you're valuable. Because the collective feared what would happen if humanity joined the galactic community as equals. Maya's eyes widened. So we're not the galaxy's most feared species. Oh, you absolutely are, Drev assured her. Just not for the reasons we thought. Lumi nodded. The collective feared that with access to advanced technology, the humans would overcome their physical limitations while retaining their unique adaptability and problem-solving abilities. In other words, Jax summarized, they saw you as competition. The Overseer's hologram stabilized momentarily. Enough of this charade. Agent Blackwood, your species is primitive, violent, unpredictable. Without our guidance, humanity would destroy itself and others. Hank laughed humorlessly. Right. And I'm sure keeping us isolated and dependent on your guidance has nothing to do with the resources you've been extracting from our planet for the past 60 years. Blackwood's eyes narrowed dangerously. What resources? The rarest resource in the galaxy, Lumi explained, pulling up another file. Creative innovation. According to these records, the collective has been harvesting human ideas, everything from art to technology, and selling them across the galaxy as their own creations. Remember all those inspirational breakthroughs our scientists supposedly had after consulting with the Overseer? Hank asked Blackwood. Turns out we were doing the creating. They were just taking credit. The pieces fell into place for Blackwood. The technology exchange was always suspiciously one-sided. They'd help us develop something we were already close to achieving, then claim we couldn't have done it without them. A classic confidence game, Jax agreed. They keep you dependent while extracting value. But why? Maya asked. If they have all this advanced technology, why do they need our ideas? Lumi's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a gesture of revelation. Because technological advancement isn't just about knowledge. It's about imagination. Most advanced species become highly specialized over time. Efficient but predictable. Humans are different. You attack problems from unexpected angles. You make intuitive leaps that defy logical progression. You see possibilities where others see only obstacles, Jax added quietly. It's what makes you dangerous and invaluable. The holographic overseer flickered one final time before disappearing completely. Above them, the massive ship's engines flared to life. They're running, Drave observed unnecessarily. Not for long, Blackwood replied, pulling out a specialized communication device. All units, this is Blackwood. Lock targeting systems on the departing vessel. Authorization code Prometheus. From the surrounding mountains, concealed defense installations activated, their weapons tracking the fleeing ship. You can shoot them down? Jax asked, impressed. Some of that technology exchange worked in our favor, Blackwood said with grim satisfaction. We're not as helpless as they believed. As the ship disappeared into the upper atmosphere, pursued by Earth's hidden defenses, a heavy silence fell over the clearing. So what happens now? Maya finally asked. Jax looked at his crew, then at the humans who had protected them. That depends. According to our original mission parameters, we're supposed to report back to the Council with our assessment of Earth's containment status. And what will you tell them? Blackwood asked, holstering her weapon at last. The truth is complicated, Jax replied. If we report that the quarantine has been compromised, it could trigger a full containment response, which might mean sterilization of this solar system. Gasps came from the assembled humans. But Jax continued, if we report that the quarantine is unnecessary, that it was based on false information, we risk exposing a conspiracy that reaches into the highest levels of galactic government. Neither option sounds great for us, Hank observed dryly. Lumi stepped forward. There is a third option. We could report that we found no sign of quarantine violation, that humans remain safely contained on their home planet, showing no indication of developing interstellar travel. But that would be a lie, Maya pointed out. A temporary one, Jax clarified. It would buy us time to gather more evidence, build a stronger case before confronting the Council. And to prepare Earth's defenses, Blackwood added, understanding, in case the Council reacts poorly. Drave looked panicked. Are we seriously considering lying to the Galactic Council? That's the right thing to do, Jax finished for him. For now. As the sun rose higher over the Montana wilderness, the unlikely alliance of humans and aliens faced a momentous decision. The truth had been revealed, but what to do with that truth remained an open question, one that could determine the fate of not just Earth, but the entire galactic order. 2 weeks after the confrontation, the Nebula Seeker sat gleaming in the early morning sun. What had once been a crumpled wreck now looked almost space-worthy, its hull patched with an unlikely combination of alien alloys and repurposed Earth metals. I still can't believe we pulled this off, Drave muttered, running a final diagnostic on the navigation system. We didn't, Jax corrected him, watching as Maya and Hank made adjustments to the makeshift communications array they'd designed together. They did. The past 14 days had seen an extraordinary collaboration. With Blackwood's help, they'd relocated the ship to a secure facility disguised as an agricultural research station. There, a small team of Earth's brightest engineers had worked alongside the aliens, pooling their knowledge to achieve what neither could have managed alone. The Council was wrong about humans, Lumi observed. Their technological development isn't just rapid, it's exponential when given the right catalysts. That's because they don't think like we do, Jax replied. Where we see limitations, they see challenges. It's refreshing. As the final preparations were completed, the small group gathered at the ship's entrance for their farewells. "So you've made your decision?" Blackwood asked, her formerly icy demeanor noticeably thawed. Jax nodded firmly. "We're going to tell the truth. The complete truth, with all the evidence we've gathered. The quarantine ends now." "What about the Oversight Collective?" Hank asked. "They won't just disappear." "No, but they'll no longer operate in shadows," Jax assured him. "And with Earth aware of their manipulation, their leverage is gone." Lumi handed Blackwood a small, crystalline device. "This contains coordinates for secure communication channels and authentication protocols. Once we've presented our case to the Council, we'll contact you." "And if the Council reacts badly?" Blackwood's question hung in the air. Rav, surprisingly, spoke up. "Then I'll personally pilot the first defensive fleet back to Earth." He straightened his posture, looking almost military for the first time since their crash. "No one threatens my human friends." Maya laughed and threw her arms around the startled security chief. "Look at you. 2 weeks ago you were hiding under tables during thunderstorms." "Yes, well," Drav muttered, awkwardly returning the hug, "Earth has been educational." The goodbyes were more emotional than any of the aliens had anticipated. Lumi and Maya exchanged data patterns, one a sophisticated scientific algorithm, the other a playlist of Earth music. Drav reluctantly accepted a parting gift from Hank, a worn Swiss Army knife that the security chief had become fascinated with, 16 functions in one primitive tool. Genius. When it was Jax's turn to say goodbye, he found himself uncharacteristically speechless. "You know," Hank said, breaking the awkward silence, "in all those bad alien movies, this is where someone says we'll be watching the skies." "And will you?" Jax asked. "Nah," Hank grinned. "We'll be too busy getting ready to join you up there. Properly this time." Jax extended his hand in the human gesture he'd learned. "Until our paths cross again, Hank Donnelly." "Just make it soon," Hank replied, clasping the alien's hand firmly. "Maya's already designing her own spaceship, and heaven help the galaxy if she figures out faster than light travel before you get back." As the three aliens boarded their repaired vessel, a strange feeling washed over Jax, something between pride and anticipation. The mission had failed in every official capacity, yet succeeded beyond imagination in ways that mattered more. The Nebula Seeker's engines hummed to life, a perfect harmony of alien technology and human ingenuity. The ship rose gracefully into the Montana sky as their human allies watched from below. "Commander's log, final entry for mission Terra Scout," Jax dictated, watching Earth grow smaller through the viewport. The quarantine of Sol 3 was based on falsehood and fear. The species known as humans are not a threat to galactic peace, they are essential to its future. They are survivors, innovators, and the most stubbornly optimistic beings I've encountered in 20 cycles of exploration. He paused, considering his next words carefully. Recommendation: full diplomatic recognition and accelerated integration into the United Planetary Alliance. The galaxy has been without Earth's unique perspective for too long. It's time we welcomed humanity to the stars, not as subjects or threats, but as equals with much to teach us. As the blue-green planet faded from view, Lumi joined him at the viewport. "Do you really think the Council will listen?" "They may not have a choice," Jax replied with newfound confidence. "Change is coming, whether they're ready or not." From her station, Drav called out, course plotted for Galactic Hub. "Warp in 3, 2, 1. The stars stretched around them as the nebula seeker jumped to light speed, carrying not just 3 changed aliens, but a message that would forever alter the course of 2 civilizations. On Earth, Maya Donnelly looked up at the vanishing pinpoint of light and smiled. This wasn't an ending, it was barely even a beginning.